A Legend in Flight, written by Julie Mentberg. A focus question. Who is Amelia Earhart and why is she a legend? Introduction. The airplane bounced among the clouds. Giant black storm clouds lay ahead. The year was 1932. The airplane carried Amelia Earhart. She had been the first woman to ride an airplane over the Atlantic Ocean. Now, if she made it, she could be the first woman to fly an airplane over the Atlantic, and she would be the first person to have crossed the Atlantic in an airplane twice. But first, she had to succeed, and the trip was dangerous. Airplanes in 1930s were small, and they didn't have instruments that today's pilots do. A pilot had to go by a sense of sight, keeping tight control of the airplane. The black clouds ahead were too large to find around, so Amelia pointed the little plane right into them. Ice frozen the plane's controls, sending it to a tailspin. Amelia struggled to get control. Finally, the ice melted and Amelia was able to pull the plane out of its spin. Many hours later, Amelia set the plane down in Northern Ireland. She had crossed the Atlantic Ocean in an airplane. She flew herself. She had already been famous. Now she could be a legend. But Amelia Earhart would be most remembered for something else. While trying to fly around the world, she disappeared. With machines. The world's first airplane flight happened in 1903. Two brothers, Wilbur and Orville Wright, successfully flew their weighing machine in North Carolina. Many people thought the idea of flying was exciting. It was also dangerous. Planes were fragile and slow. They did not fly well in bad weather, and many pilots died in crashes. By 1937, airplanes had improved a lot. Engineers designed better airplanes, but accidents still happened. Kansas jump. Anyone who knew Emily as a child could hardly have been surprised by her accomplishments. She was born in Kansas in 1897. She spent most of her time with her family and friends. They camped around the bank of the Missouri River. Amelia made up games for children to play. She and her sister were such active children that her mother made bloomers for them to wear. Unlike dresses, bloomers allowed the girls to wear as active as the boys. When Amelia was 21, her family moved to California. One day she attended an air show. The airplanes danced her, flying in loops and doing stunts. She knew then that she wanted to fly. Time to fly. Amelia later moved to the Boston and found a job at Dash's house. It was a place where people who were poor, especially children, could receive help. She loved her work there, but then the chance of a lifetime presented itself. George Putnam, a publisher, searched for a woman to be the first to ride an airplane over the Atlantic. It was a dangerous idea. 3 women had died trying to cross the Atlantic the year before. Only men had ever crossed the Atlantic in an airplane. Anyone who would try it and had to withstand danger and fracture. George thought Amelia Earhart was perfect, and she was eager to go. Amelia Earhart, flyer, and in a lifetime, Amelia worked at many jobs. At that time, it was unusual for women to have jobs at all: nurse, social worker, pilot, clothing designer, mechanic editor, writer, airplane executive, professor. She also helped start at the 99s, a group of women pilots that still exists today. Amelia was just a passenger on that 1928 flight, but life would never be the same. The first woman to cross the Atlantic made headlines around the world. After the flight, she was famous and busy writing books and giving speeches about flying. She also designs clothing and luggage for active women like itself and even had launched two airlines. Later, she married George Putnam. She also continued to fly. By the time she was 39 years old, Amelia had made every major flight there, was except for one. The greatest challenge left was only to fly around the world. Only one pilot had ever flown around the world, but he didn't follow the equator, the longest and most difficult road. This was the road Amelia would fly. Would she make it? By this time, no one doubts Amelia Earhart's flying skill. On May 21, 1937, she took off with her navigator, Fred Noon. They went from California to Florida in a Lockheed Electra last flight. Amelia and Fred stopped at the Electra in Florida. The new plane has crossed the entire North American continent. Next, they flew to South America, Africa, India, Asia, and Australia. It appeared that Amelia Earhart would once again pull off an historic flight without a hitch. On June 29, 1937, they stopped in New Guinea, just north of Australia. There they fueled the airplane and checked their maps. When they took off again, there was no hint of any trouble to come. As they flew close to Howland Island, their radio messages became odd. Wait a minute. The U.S. Coast Guard cutter Itacast waited offshore to receive the signals and help them find the island. Those radio signals were irregular and strange. Amelia spoke of a storm, yet the weather over the island was clear. More than 20 hours into the flight, Amelia's voice says, "We're running north and south." She was never heard from again. What happened to Amelia? This question is still a mystery today. The Ithaca and the U.S. Navy began searching for Amelia's plane. The search continued for weeks. No sign of the plane's Amelia or Fred was found. After a year of searching, Amelia's husband believed that she died at the sea. But is that the full story? Some people think Amelia and Fred survived an emergency landing where picked up a Japanese ship. Others think that Amelia landed the plane but a different island. There, she and Fred were able to live on native foods but died of either sickness or old age. Many people believe that the easiest answer is that the plane landed in the water. Perhaps Amelia and Fred drowned before they inflated their life raft. Whatever happened, there's no doubt that Amelia Earhart is one of the greatest Americans of the 20th century. She showed everyone that women didn't have to live with limits. She showed people that anyone could fly. She was a legend.